Please welcome to the stage Director, Sales Engineering, Dataiku, Emma Irwin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back after the break. My name is Emma Irwin, and I lead the sales engineering team here at Dataiku in Northern Europe. And I want to take you back a couple years ago to when I joined this company. Because 5 years ago, you might remember a sexy, buzzy technology called Hadoop. Anyone? OK. You might also remember that it was extremely difficult to use. I actually couldn't find anyone other than a handful of IT people in a dark room that knew what they were doing with it. And what that made really easy for me is to sell them Dataiku on top of that platform they just invested millions of pounds on as the user interface. And why I tell you that story is not to say that that was bad or this is good, but that Dataiku has always been around as this accelerator, this layer that allows you to invest in the right infrastructure and technology, but to leave the business people with something that makes sense for them. And so while we are now certainly not in the year of Hadoop, we are in the business of accelerating your technology. And I have the pleasure of talking to you about the product and about how the foundation that we built then that allowed people to access their infrastructure, their data, and make business transformations and outcomes is still here today doing those things. What really ties together those past 10 years or more of Dataiku is just that. So how did we go from the Hadoop world to, if you can remember a few years ago, the cloud era, to now what is the Gen AI hyperzone, or however the world will brand us, is that we stick a layer for people who need to do their job on top of those technologies. And that means allowing businesses to access data on demand, to transform that data in the way that they need, to leverage visual machine learning technologies and accelerate prototyping and democratize the ability across the organization, to actually put things into production, shock, right, and so much more. At the time, when I joined, we could speak to a business that was happy to just put something in production, period. I'm seeing some nods. Then it got to the point where you'd say, we can do it in a year. That's really exciting. We'd introduce Dataiku, and suddenly, in a couple of weeks or days, they'd take something that they'd built and actually get it into prod, and we could celebrate. So we've been that AI accelerator for over 10 years, with hundreds of customers across startups, charities, Fortune 500s, with thousands of customers and users excited, with agencies all over the world and here in the UK. And we managed to do that successfully with this platform that does 4 key things extremely well. The first is that it covers the entire AI and analytics lifecycle across all user personas, regardless of their job title or their technical acumen. The second is sitting on top of your data, whether that is those legacy enterprise systems or application layers, or the most modern cloud data warehouse that you've just invested in. Third is enabling governance. It's hard to put something into production if you don't trust it. It's hard to make a business decision off a dashboard you don't understand where it came from. So we put governance at the heart of everything you do, with lineage and traceability every step of the way. And finally, we have a technology optionality, which, of course, sounds like a big or fancy word, but really just goes back to why I told that anecdote in the first place, right? You're investing in tech and infrastructure, and you're making decisions today that are based on the best information you have. But you want flexibility for the future. You want to be able to go from Hadoop to the cloud to whatever comes next. And what does that mean today? What does it mean, and what is the direction that Dataiku's product team is taking us to ensure that's possible? Well, it means that we want to accelerate you across 3 key dimensions. So in the next few slides, we'll see the capabilities for LLMs, because, of course, we agree that Gen AI at an enterprise scale is the hot topic today. It's critical for us to get this right. But we also want to talk about democratizing and accelerating across the enterprise in a whole host of other dimensions. There's a lot of work that has to happen before you embed something like Gen AI into the business. And finally, because no project should be complete without governance, we'll talk about how that's at the heart of this as well. So let's start with enterprise-grade generative AI and what it really looks like. This is the product keynote, of course. So we'll talk about a couple of key features. But first, let's do a quick summary of what journey it has been so far. Probably, you've seen some kind of slide like this, right? There are a bunch of tech that you do something with, and then you operationalize the process, which, of course, is another one of those fun words, 52 syllables. And after GPT launched, I'll be honest, I was getting a lot of calls. Even my grandma said, hey, do you know about this AI stuff? She previously thought I worked with like printers. Now, if that was a couple of years ago, and we're all super excited, and even grandma knows, then why is it that studies find that over 90% of organizations are still hesitant or unwilling to put Gen AI-related projects into production? Well, the top reasons they mentioned are probably easy for you to guess as well. They're cost-related, they're privacy or control-related, and they're quality and performance-related. But why is that? If we're all starting on the left with what we agree are some incredible technology options, how is it so hard to get to the right where we put something into production? Well, if we move past early-stage experimentation, where we all think of the incredible business cases and business value that we could create, we have to start thinking about the sticky questions. Right? I actually heard someone in the audience earlier saying, unless they show me something crazy, I don't think that this is going to happen for my company too soon. And that's so fair, because you're starting to think about things like, well, how do I actually give access to my teams to these incredible LLMs? How do I take a foundational model and turn it into an enterprise-grade application? How do I customize an LLM? How do I integrate these models into my MLOps or DevOps process that I've been building over the last couple of years? And those may sound extremely hard to answer, but for Dataiku, these are very familiar questions. That's because here, we've been helping businesses all around the world with building, deploying, and maintaining AI applications long before the LLM hype came around. And when it comes to LLM-powered applications, we're absolutely convinced that building on the foundation of our existing platform is the right way to go to help you each reach success with Gen AI. And our product and R&D teams are pretty committed to it, too. So I'll show you a couple of things that they've built that really allow this to be the case. First, last year, Dataiku released a variety of new capabilities related to generative AI. On this slide, you get a couple of overviews. Of course, this is a builder. You can see that, right? But it really relates to the foundations that we've been talking about. So visual recipes for business users or non-technical users to take advantage of these options, right? Code recipes so that the most advanced people in your organization are not held back, and a visual flow that ties everything together from a governance and lineage perspective. Some of the capabilities have been totally turbocharged with LLMs right in them. So things like your favorite prepare recipe, you can now chat to, and it will update your data set for you. Other things are like code assistants or little helpers throughout the platform exist already. We also introduced prompt studios to iteratively design and test the prompts that you want to build against your data sets. And Dataiku Answers, which is a RAG-based application so you can chat directly to them. Everybody knows how to talk to a chatbot at this point. They were wrapped in what we're calling the LLM mesh, so a secure gateway, future-proof, avoid lock-in, allow you to swap between LLM providers through a governed framework. And then these 3 services, as we're calling them, were introduced just recently. That's where we're going to spend a lot of time today. But before I go there, I have to, again, I may sound like a broken record, talk about the governance. For every AI initiative, you need governance, and generative AI use cases are no exception. Dataiku governance capabilities give you the ability to fully govern everything from your most basic ETL automated pipelines to these generative AI enterprise-grade applications, all in one platform, so you can confidently and securely package them out to employees or customers. Now, That first service we wanted to talk about. If you remember, why aren't people putting things into production? The first issue is cost, right? The fear of ballooning costs or that it's not worth it, right? Although it might be impressive or impactful or demo really cool to have an LLM-based application in your enterprise, it's not always worth the cost. So how can we monitor that? How can we check? Dataiku Cost Guard is to answer exactly that problem. It's an out-of-the-box, ready-to-use solution that allows you to display the most important cost metrics around your LLMs. It gives you the ability to drill down into business units, users, applications, or LLM providers so you can feel confident about your spend and the direction it's going. The second issue, of course, is around safety, which is where we introduce Safeguard. Before you put an LLM in front of your customer or your employee, before you let it hurt your business or your reputation, think of something like Safeguard. This allows you to actually consider questions around how PII data is being handled, if it's completely free of toxic content, if you are preventing certain forbidden terms from being used, both at the query and the response level. And then it allows you to, if any of those things are broken at some point in the process, easily identify and then fix them, right? A critical step that we want. Here, the control is not just about it costing the right amount. It's not just about it being the right from a safety point of view, but also quality. That last piece, that last concern why people don't put something into production was around the performance of these LLMs, right? So how do we ensure that? The last service we introduced most recently, which is called Dataiku Quality Guard. It sounds so simple when you put it that way. But whether it's in a development phase or in production, you need to be able to evaluate the quality of your models. And you may be aware that one of the most popular LLM evaluation techniques is called LLM as a judge. Well, it's exactly what it sounds. It's where you apply an LLM to judge the quality of the responses that you've received. In Dataiku, you can now leverage this technique with absolutely no code required. It might look familiar if you were seeing this screen and you go, didn't you always have that? That's because, again, we're building on the foundations of the platform, and we've always had model evaluation techniques. I hate to call them like traditional or legacy ML because they used to be the sexy thing of a couple of years ago. But of course, we were doing accuracy and precision and drift monitoring and all of these other components, automating things like champion and challenger testing or even model retraining. All possible now for the LLMs, but with added metrics related specifically to these use cases. So do you need to check your LLM faithfulness, answer relevance, context relevancy, right? Immediately available at the touch of a button for each of the users who might be interested in taking advantage. And lastly, quality, performance, they also come with how much you can customize the models you're working with. So most recently, everything else you've seen was available. The last thing we've introduced is the no-code model fine-tuning. This is something that so many customers have asked us for because they truly believe that's where they'll make the difference, right? Serena talked about it earlier, this idea of having a competitive advantage, and part of that is making sure it is most relevant to the data, to the business, to the work streams you're specifically focused on. And now it's possible. And we spoke a little bit, or I've mentioned kind of through passing, that there's this idea you can also do RAG-augmented applications. And so I thought I'd throw up a super quick video overview here. This is called Dataiku Answers. It's one of our most popular features right now. It was introduced earlier this year, and it allows you in a couple of minutes to include your own data as part of a knowledge base with the LLMs that you're choosing, and add a visual chat-based interface on top. This can be surfaced to your customers or to your internal employees and allows it to maintain its governance element because it's in the same platform, connecting through the same authentication as all the other pieces of your data pipeline. Whether it's for a specific scenario that you're seeing here, where we're asking some life sciences intel, you want to review contracts, you want to have a conversation internally, we're using it to check what our benefits really do for us. You know, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of potential use cases for something like this, and super easy to implement. That, though, brings us to a potential sticking point. If there are hundreds, if not thousands, of ways to use an LLM, how do you make sure that you're using the right one for the right use case, that they're applied appropriately, and that you have visual information about each of them? It brings us to a feature we're launching shortly called the LLM Registry, which allows you, perhaps not you in this room as the builder, but a high executive, a CIO, someone who is supposed to be responsible for this entire portfolio, to check and keep model documentation up to date, to make sure that they're rationalizing which models are being used, and verifying that all of that information is accessible if they're audited or if a regulatory board is interested to know exactly what is happening at any one point throughout the flow. That's coming very soon, and will also allow you to define and enforce rules for usage and oversight in your industry. Of course, each of you should have a representative from Dataiku in the room. So if you want more information, if that's very appealing to you, and you want to get in and understand how that can work, feel free to tag them. I can see all my lovely coworkers over here just excited for that opportunity. And this brings us to the next piece, which is about accelerating and democratizing across the enterprise. So for this, I'm actually going to swap over to a video, because I feel like it's a lot more fun to put it in practice. Woo. Now, I'm going to ask you to put yourself in the shoes of a marketing analyst, right? Not a data scientist, not like a traditional SQL analyst, someone who has to send customized emails to their end user every month, and it takes up a lot of their time. And how that person can take advantage of Dataiku's features to send an email like this, which is fully customized to the portfolio, no code needed. Now, we'll go into the flow so you can see that at first, I access the data related to my customers, my regions. I transform that information, and I eventually even set up the email and automate sending it through Dataiku. How do we connect to the data in the first place? Well, of course, if you're familiar with the platform, you know we have a variety of connectors and a data catalog where we can check what information is available, preview and verify that it's relevant to my use case, and it has the columns that I'm most interested in. Once I'm connected, in this transformation area, I might be interested in dropping into any specific data set and checking it out. We get a really high-level overview that my most important feature, customer email, has some missing values that I'll eventually want to prepare and to take care of. But I also have a data quality setup where I could view this at a much higher level just to make sure that the rules that I need to have applied are followed. Once I'm done, and I know what steps I need to take, I have a wide variety of processors, both visual and code, that I can apply. Here, of course, I need to merge my customer data with other things. And so I choose those two tables and the join key, and instead of flipping around with what the SQL is or potentially getting some spelling wrong, which I'm known to do, I easily click the button, and I've got my new table. Here now, I want to build a predictive model over who's interested, and I have historic data that I'll build it on. Dataiku's visual ML is, of course, relevant and easy to use for any individual and comes with a huge amount of interpretability statistics so I can understand exactly what has happened. We're flying through it, but really this project only did take a couple hours to make. There we have a list now of customers who are most interested, and we had, if you saw it in that quick screenshot, a latitude and longitude. With this information and a Dataiku prepare recipe, I'm able to create a geopoint, which lets me, with, and I'll say it again, no code, actually visualize where each of these customers are located. The drag and drop mapping functionality. OK, I'm mostly on the coasts. Good to know. With that, I've got my profiles, I know who's interested, and I want to actually start to generate those emails. Of course, I'm going to go into what is called Dataiku Prompt Studios, where I select the LLM I'd like to use across my wide variety. I can check which ones are not only most efficient, but most relevant, who speak in the tone I like, peppy, upbeat. And then I can give it an output format that they may want to use. So some examples of how this should look. And because I'm conscious of my budget, I can check the estimated cost of running this type of recipe so that I don't go crazy. When that's finished, I might want to include a human in the loop. Of course, it's not mandatory, but it does allow for some level of validation and confidence to say this email is either OK or potentially needs to be revised before it goes out to my individuals. And thanks to a new prepackaged tool that we have, we can actually set up the sending of the emails automatically as well. So this is what it ends up looking like. Very, very easy to use. Of course, at some point, there might be someone who's interested in understanding, OK, what is going on in this project? I wasn't involved in building it. I want to know. So we'll come back to that chatbot we saw before, which now lets me query the data sets directly, asking some common questions like, how many customers do I have to reach out to, or more specific ones that may not have been part of the templated requests. This is super easy and also lets me validate that that response actually is relevant or was appropriate to my question so that it's even better for others to use. Here, I keep all of the conversations I had with the chatbot so someone can go back and check and see both what the feedback was, but also if their question had been answered in the past to verify. And I keep mentioning, but we are cost conscious in this environment, right? So alongside the entire project where we connected, transformed, built a model, and ultimately emailed to our customers, we have the option to check a cost over project dashboard. This comes embedded inside of the platform, so you can apply it to any project that you use that involves LLMs, but can see across individual projects or across just that one that I was interested in, how much did I actually cost, and was it worth it to the business to do such a thing? I know, that was a quick overview. But if you want a project like that, we have existing templated options that you can actually take directly in your Dataiku environment. Again, reach out to one of your lovely folks for that information. And it brings me to my very, very last slide, which is one more announcement. You saw how we could accelerate all elements of the pipeline. But what the last piece is, a space that we haven't previously played here at Dataiku, is this idea of a last mile, right? And solving a problem that we see all the time, where an incredible project, an incredible data set is built inside of Dataiku, but then a variety of screenshots that are immediately out of date as soon as they're taken are embedded into a presentation. Here, Dataiku Stories is meant to solve that problem. Simply query the data directly inside the platform, have your slides and your presentation created for you, and have it connected to the live data so that it can be in front of your executives, your business consumers, and more, up to date and fully trusted with the entire lineage behind it. Hopefully with that sneak peek, you're excited. That is coming this quarter, and we're happy to get you involved in testing it out or a demonstration with one of our lovely sales engineers. They're on my team, so I can actually volunteer them. With that, thank you so much for listening, everyone. I'm Emma, and this is our product keynote. I hope you enjoyed.